everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm so happy you're here. I'd like to give a special welcome to our new participants whom I met through the All Ears English podcast, which is an excellent podcast. And I'm so glad you've come over to High Value Writing. So to celebrate the fact that we're all together as a learning community now, I thought today we could talk briefly about 3 things we all want to keep in mind when we're emailing people from different cultures. All right, so whether you live in the US or elsewhere, whether you work in a team of people of the same culture, but communicate across cultures outside your organization, we all need to be sensitive and aware of what works in communication in different cultures. Now, culture, of course, could be generational, it could be locational, it can be based on nationality and customs, it can be based on the industry you work in. But when you know for a fact that you are emailing or talking with someone with a different cultural background than you, you do want to consider, do I need to think about my level of directness? What's appropriate in that person's culture? The way that I show courtesy, what does respect and courtesy look like in that culture? And thirdly, how much context is needed for that reader? So, and these skills can also work if you're speaking out loud, all right? So let's get into the first one, level of directness. So we all know that different people are okay with different levels of directness, right? It can be based on personality. You may have some friends you can be very direct with and others that you are more careful or indirect even with, right? Well, this also pertains or relates in culture. We do not all grow up with the same standards and expectations of how direct to be. So we have to be a little bit careful when we're talking to someone from a different culture in terms of how direct we want to be. So with the examples on the screen, we can see there are quite a few different ways to express the same thought. So if you needed to criticize or disagree in a meeting, you'd have to consider, well, if I'm super, super direct, I disagree. It will be clear, but potentially harmful to a relationship. And then if we're super indirect, I like what you've said, and I'd like to also think some more. They may not realize that you disagree. So we've got to meet somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. And as we see from these examples, we have different options. Maybe I would go with D for somebody that I don't know too well. Oh, could you go over what you explained again? I'm not sure I understood. I'm being a little indirect. I'm taking a little bit of it on myself, but I'm doing that because maybe I don't know them or I don't know how much directness they're comfortable with. On the other hand, when I'm working with a group of people I know well, I could probably say B. I had some questions about that information. And it's okay. So regardless of where you stand, think about who you're writing to. What type of directness level do you think they're anticipating? And keeping in mind, to be very, very generalist, to totally overgeneralize, we often see that writers in the US, Canada, Western Europe, and Australia are a little bit more towards the direct side. And we often see that writers from Asia, South America, and some other countries around the Middle East might be, and some African countries as well, might be less direct. Now, that's not going to fit for everyone, right? But that's a rule of thumb that you could consider before considering what does that individual probably prefer. All right, so we want to consider how direct to be when we're emailing with someone from a different culture. We also want to consider how courteous to be, and also what does courtesy look like? Does courtesy mean we say please a whole lot? Does courtesy mean we offer options? Courtesy can come in all different shapes and sizes. And so what would be appropriate in a business conversation? Let's say we're offering to send someone a digital copy. Now, if I'm offering to send someone a digital copy of something, I want to make sure they get that copy if they want it, and they don't feel bad about asking, and things like that. And so I might choose from this list maybe D. Many clients prefer to have a digital copy, meaning you're not weird for wanting one, right? I say that to make the reader comfortable. Many clients prefer digital copies. Let me know if you'd like one. Or E, we can also offer you one. I would probably never choose C. That's very, very formal. But A and B, I think, are courteous without overdoing it. So again, writing to that person, how much courtesy do you want to put in? And we do not need to say please every time we ask something. In fact, All Ears English did a really good podcast about that and how there are other ways to say please and thank you. Or to make an offer, like here with A, if you would prefer. So there are different ways to be polite, but consider before you ask. You don't want to say, I'm going to give you a digital copy if you need one, but we also don't want to be overly indirect or overly uncourteous. So we're talking about different levels of directness, different levels of courtesy, and then the last one I'll bring up today, different levels of context. It actually can depend on culture slightly how much context people expect when they get a question or a comment. And that means how much background do they expect? Do they want you to explain every detail? Or do they just want you to say the main point and they'll fill in the details because they get it? Some cultures are different that way. So when we look at the screen here, if you're inviting a friend, if you're maybe texting a friend that you want to meet up for pizza, you might just say the first one. Let's say it is 5 p.m., we're getting out of work, we know our friends well, we just text pizza. They probably know, oh, that means that she wants to get a pizza with me. That's probably enough context if you know the person really well. However, when we don't know the person as well, or that person doesn't know the situation as well, we need more context and information. And so I might do something like the second one. We're ordering pizza for lunch. Are you interested? Or the second to last, I'm going out for pizza. Do you want to come? The one in the middle, pizza is one option among many. That sounds a little bit formal. I don't know. We would use that if someone truly needs all of the context and we're not sure they're going to understand. So let me generalize by country again. Again, not always true, but trends show that writers in the US, Western Europe, Canada, Australia tend to provide a lot of context, spelling it out explicitly. I would like to order a pizza for lunch and I prefer the one with mushrooms and peppers. Which one would you prefer? Do you also like peppers? That's a lot of detail and explicit context. That's kind of a Western European American thing to do. And you can see how in the US, with our writing, we expect the details to be spelled out, a bulleted list of what's going to happen. So you want to do that with a Western audience. However, many cultures do not put as much context into the sentence because they know the listener or reader is going to get it. And so the listener or reader who's potentially from an Asian country, a South American country, some African countries, some Eastern European countries, they may say, I did not need all that information about the pizza place. I just know we're going to get pizza. We'll figure it out. And so some cultures might feel like if you give lots and lots of background, that's actually repetitive. So as you go through writing, when you're not sure the other person's angle, their cultural perspective, make sure you consider those three things. Be careful with your level of directness, level of courtesy, and level of context, because your reader may have different expectations than you grew up with. So let me know what your questions are in the comment box. I'd love to talk more about this, and when have you experienced these different levels of courtesy, context, etc. when you've written to different people who are from around the world. So we'll talk soon. I look forward to your comments. Please subscribe and I'll be back at you next week. Have a good one.